hello there. Welcome to another edition of East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. My first guest this week is Tyler Mayor-elect Stuart Hene. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Blake, absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
Want to begin with the results of the runoff election. You are the mayor-elect for the city of Tyler.
Yes.
When we go back to that first election in May, when this was a four-person race, you came second in that race.
Correct.
You have won the runoff. Were you surprised by the results on Saturday, and what do you think was the difference maker this time around?
I think the difference maker was being able to get out and connect with some of former Councilman Wynn's supporters and some of former Councilwoman McKellar's supporters. And uniting everybody behind one campaign, I think, is what made the difference. And having that unified voice of all three support groups going in the same direction obviously was the clear distinction in this race. And
I want to talk about turnout. More than 67,000 people could have voted in this election. Of that number, only about 13% actually turned out. When it comes to turnout, did that disappoint you, that number?
The good thing is it was higher than the May turnout, so we improved on that, which shows we were able to get contact with more people. We were able to reach out to more people, so that's a positive. But you're right. Historically, May elections are low turnout, and then runoffs are even lower. I wish we can reach more people, and that's my message to everybody. Like you and I talked about last time, your voice really does matter. Your vote really does matter. And I wish people would come out and exercise their right to vote more often. And
you do make a good point. When it comes to turnout, while it was low, when you look at previous municipal elections, this was actually high compared to them. So yes. Certainly notable there. Yeah. Want to talk about something a lot of people in town are talking about this week. There was a community meeting on Monday about a planned data center. This would be on Irwin Street, west of downtown. Where do you stand on this? So
that meeting was a community neighborhood meeting. It wasn't an official city meeting. It wasn't an official planning and zoning meeting. That district is Councilwoman Hawkins' district, and she organized just a neighborhood meet and greet with some of her residents, as many people that wanted to come, and then the people that are doing that project. And it was a way for community members to ask questions. It was a way for the project developers to answer questions and get to know the residents in the community. And so as council members, we felt important that we need to be there to learn as well. And I harped on that throughout my campaign of accountability, transparency, and communication. And I actually touched on that a little bit at the beginning of that meeting of here we are to all answer questions, to learn information. And that's what I was doing there at the same time, was learning about the project, learning what the residents want, and hearing their concerns. Because as you and I have talked about, I can't do my job effectively if I don't know where the residents stand. And hearing a lot of those residents' concerns, it goes back to what we've talked about before. We have to protect our water source. We have to protect our environment, whether it's air, whether it's water, whether it's just the neighborhood in general. We have to be mindful of those things, and if that project doesn't fit within the parameters of what we want to do as a city, and especially if the voters and the residents and the community does not want that project, well, I'm going to listen to what the community is saying.
And so in saying that, there's a request out for a special use permit, I believe it is, when it comes to the developer here. That will go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Based off what you heard this week and what you know, would it be your recommendation to P&Z to decline that permit?
Well, I can't make a recommendation to Planning and Zoning because I don't want to influence what they're going to decide one way or the other. Based on what I'm hearing, I think it's going to be an uphill battle for that project in front of Planning and Zoning. They obviously can make their independent decisions. I hope they are listening to the community as well, just like we are. And if it comes before council, then obviously, yes, we get to make our decisions. But thankfully, we have parameters in place where there's different protocols that you have to meet. And like you said, the next step is planning and zoning, and that's coming up in July. But from what I've heard from community input, from people that have reached out to me, from attending that meeting this past Monday, it sounds like it's an uphill battle at P&Z.
Okay, back in time now, back to the mayoral race. This was certainly the most competitive race for Tyler Mayor in recent history. When you announced last year that you were going to run for mayor, did you ever think the race would turn into to what it became?
Absolutely not. It was a long process. It was over a year. I think we officially announced, and if my memory serves me correctly, I think this past week marked the exact 1 year date from when we announced.
It was on the downtown square, I believe.
That's exactly right. It was before all the construction took place. And so obviously we had things kind of planning in the background before we announced. And so that was probably April or May of last year. So it's been over a year for a campaign, which is a long campaign for a local race. But it was well worth it. Obviously, I don't want to do something if it's not worth putting in the time and the effort. And we did. We put in the work. We put in the effort. And thankfully, the results show that.
And were you surprised by a lot of money was spent in this race as well? I mean, you of course know that with your own campaign in terms of campaign materials, advertising, of course. I mean, did it surprise you how expensive this race became?
It did. For a non-paid volunteer position, there was a lot of campaign funds used for this position.
Now, when you look at the campaign, you of course won this race. You are the mayor-elect, but hindsight's 2020. When you look back, is there anything you would have done differently? Any regrets?
I don't think I have any regrets. Obviously, I would love to have face-to-face contact and one-on-one communications with more people. We try to reach as many people as possible, and I think we did a really good job at doing that. And thankfully, like you said, the results show that. But obviously, having contact with as many people as possible is the best way to go. And it goes back to your first question of how do we get more voter turnout? How do we get more voter awareness? And that's something I would like to continue to see with our community, is a continual increase in voter turnout, a continual awareness of civic engagement. And I hope over the next few years, that's something we could portray, because as you know, city council elections happen every year. And so hopefully there's more civic engagement that is a result of this mayoral election. And
you mentioned voting right there and turnout. You've been elected to a 2-year term.
Yes.
When it comes to the mayor of Tyler, you can be in office for 3 consecutive terms.
Correct.
Is it your intent to be in office for 3 terms?
It's my intent to do what the community wants me to do. If they want to have me for a 2nd term or a 3rd term, you know, that's great, but I want to focus on this 1st term and do the work of this 1st term, because there is a lot of work to accomplish, and that's my immediate goal right now.
And as mentioned, you won this election with 57% of the vote. That being said, more than 3,800 people did vote for your opponent, John Nix, in this race. How do you bridge the divide there? When it comes to those people, you are going to be their next mayor. They are citizens. You serve them. How do you pay attention to those concerns that they had during the campaign that made them vote for your opponent? How do you listen to them and try and meet them in the middle?
That's a very good question, and I think I've already started working on that process. I've had several of his supporters reach out to me, and then I've actually reached out to a lot of them myself to, you know, how can we help each other? Obviously, our goal is how do we make the city of Tyler the best possible place? We may have different answers to that question, but that doesn't mean our goal isn't the same in the long run. And so it's being able to understand their concerns and how the city and how me as mayor can help address those concerns at the same time of listening to the community. And so it's all about, you know, having a conversation with somebody, hearing their concerns, and hopefully coming to a resolution. And if we have that open channel of communication, it's a lot easier to reach a resolution. I may not agree with you on every single thing. You may not agree with me on every single thing, but the least we could do is sit down and have a conversation about it.
All right, Tyler Mayor-elect Stuart Hene,
Blake,
appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Look forward to having more conversations with you here on the show.
I would love that.
Still to come, we'll talk with Hene's now former opponent, John Nix, about whether he'll run again and why he feels his campaign still created change. And a little later, Smith County Republican Party Chair David Stein on the recent Texas GOP convention. East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. We'll be right back.
Did you know you can watch KLTV 7 live or whenever you want? totally free with no subscriptions. Just search KLTV7 on your Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, or Android TV. Get local live news, first alert weather, and sports anytime you want it. Download and stream KLTV7, watch live, or play it back later. It's easy to watch, easy to install, and it's free. This is KLTV7 on your schedule. So the next time you stream, search KLTV7 News.
Making plans? Let us keep you weather ready.
Spring weather can change quickly, but knowing when it's coming means everything.
We're giving you the first alert for a fast-moving system.
That's why the KLTV First Alert weather team is always here. Trusted forecasts, instant alerts, free on any device.
Tracking this storm live right now.
Because when it comes to severe weather, getting you the first alert makes all the difference.
KLTV, your first alert during severe weather.
And welcome back to East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. I'm joined now by former Tyler mayoral candidate John Nix. John, thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Want to talk about the election. First off, Stuart Hene has been elected to serve a 2-year term as the mayor of Tyler. First question for you, do you plan to run again in the next 2 years or for elected office ever again?
I really don't know. I really didn't plan to run this time. It really just got to where there were issues I felt like needed to be addressed, and I was the one to address them, and so that's why I ran. So definitely wasn't planning on it, and so I don't think that there's really anything I'm looking at. If a need comes up and that's the solution, then we'll make that decision then.
You had come out on top in that May election when it was a 4-person race. Did the runoff results surprise you Saturday?
They did a little bit, and I think that they did in reference to I thought the spread was a little bit wider than I expected it, but by the same token, we'd never had a runoff with that high of a turnout, even though it was low. And by the same token, we'd never had a runoff where the entire council and former mayor or sitting mayor came out against a candidate. So that was definitely something that as that was happening and watching, it was like, okay, this is unusual.
And you mentioned that unusual when you embarked on this journey last year, announcing the day of the state of the city last year that you were going to run for mayor. Did you ever think this race would become what it ended up turning into? It was a very visible race. It had a lot of attention. There was a lot of spending in terms of campaigning and advertising. Did you think it would turn into this?
Well, that was really the hope, honestly. Like, I didn't see a path where we could bring attention to change that needed to be happening at City Hall other than it getting that many eyes on it through the course. So that's the reason we came out of the gate with our platform, our Thrive Tyler platform, and stuck to it all the way through. And I think that platform, I mean, you can truly see it. It created and identified the policies in the race. When I started, no one was talking about infrastructure. No one was talking about sewer. No one was concerned about that. The road maintenance, nobody had said the word transparency. So it was one of those deals, you know, the first time I heard another candidate say transparency was at that GTAR forum we had. And then I think it was the forum we had at South Central Church, where it's the first time every candidate started talking about infrastructure. And so that's great. I mean, that is the purpose of the campaign and the things that we saw that we needed to run. Like, hey, these things are not being addressed. And it's wild to see that vision actually come to fruition, where all of a sudden everyone's concerned about infrastructure and everyone's concerned about transparency.
And you mentioned to us in an interview on Saturday after you had learned the results of this race that you felt your campaign, even though you lost this race, you felt the campaign had still sparked change. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think change and even attention. But I mean, you really saw from even, I'm trying to remember the first time I brought it up, but I think it was last June, so over a year ago, when I was on council, something as little as potholes, right, were being addressed. If you reported on the app, they were being addressed within 24 to 48 hours, no matter where they were in the city. And when I started running, there was a pothole just around the corner from my house that had a City of Tyler sandwich board over it for over 8 months. And so it was those kind of things. And then about 2 months ago, the city of Tyler did this whole press release and said, hey, if you report a pothole on the app, we'll have it filled within 24 to 48 hours. So, I mean, it's changed like that. It's changed like, you know, I mentioned the GTAR race, the GTAR forum, and all of a sudden other candidates were using the word, hey, we're going to bring transparency to City Hall, which is funny when it's coming from three, active council people that are there. So I think change in that, change in, I mean, look at the library, as much as they attempted to downplay that. They created a clean teen section. They moved inappropriate books out of sections where kids could do that. They started a policy where they're monitoring for unattended children roaming the aisles and making sure that they know what they're doing and who's they're there with. I mean, all those things were things we were running on, and that during the course of the campaign, adjustments were made, just like restructuring the water bill. We were demanding at the very beginning, we want to see explanations for what these fees are. Now, I think they've missed the mark on that, and I hope that there's more improvement coming. And still no one has promised to address or do anything about the water bills themselves and the fees. And hopefully that will be coming in the future.
And even though you will not be the next mayor of Tyler, do you plan on still being vocal about the issues you campaigned on?
We will. I mean, we have our Friday porch posts with my wife. I don't know if you've watched any of those. Those became very popular. And kind of in that vein, I think we're going to do one kind of post-election this week. We'll release one this Friday, I believe. And just kind of talk about where we are post-election and our views on that. And so that's probably a platform we're going to continue to use to talk about things like the water bills, to talk about things like our road maintenance and road maintenance spending. So I do expect that to be the case.
And quickly here, something that's really been in the news this week, brought a lot of people out for a town hall event, a community meeting on Monday, this planned data center on Irwin Street, just to the west of downtown. Yeah. What do you think about this? Well, once again, this kind of goes back to one of the reasons I was campaigning. Our city is continuing to be, and we're seeing it even now, reactionary and not proactive. Data centers and data center issues have been in the news for over a year prominently, and for several years in Texas with all the influx. There is no reason to have not already had a policy in place. And if zoning was going to allow it in places, to disallow it if they don't want it, or to put guardrails around it if they do. I mean, that's something that should have already been done. This on the doorstep of individuals making an investment and then citizens being surprised about what was going in there. I mean, that's not good for either side. That's not good for the citizens, and it's not good for the guys who are spending money not knowing if they're going to get approval, right? Like that's the reason our city needs to have the change from being reactionary to being proactive. And John, with the minute we have left here, when it comes to the people who supported you in this campaign, because when you look at it, the difference in the election, I believe, was about 1,300 votes. Yep. You still had several thousand people come out and vote for you. What's the message to the people who supported you and helped you in your campaign, even though it was unsuccessful? Yeah, well, so we ran a clean campaign. We never disparaged anybody's character, which unfortunately was not the same on the other side. That was intentional, and that was something supported by our supporters. Could we have, run a different campaign and had a different result? I think possibly so. But being able to sleep at night, being able to tell our supporters, like, hey, listen, we were not going to disparage our neighbors. We were not going to disparage those people we're going to see every day and that we live with. And we're going to run a campaign that just speaks about issues, does not speak about deficiencies of other people. We were going to strictly speak on what needs to happen at City Hall and how we were going to do that. And we did that. Our supporters were amazing. I was overwhelmed by the support we had, by the votes we got both times. Just so thankful that many people felt empowered and that maybe change could come to Tyler.
We didn't get it this time, but maybe someday.
All right, John Nix, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the time.
I appreciate it.
You bet. We're back with more East Texas politics on East Texas Now right after this.
Welcome back to East Texas Now. This is Hannah,
Kylie,
and Leo. And we're covering the stories you want to hear about.
Live local news, breaking news, and interviews all day long, every day.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you were entertained and, more importantly, informed.
And guess what? You can watch us totally free with no subscriptions. You can just search KLTV 7.
This is East Texas Now, live local news all day long.
And welcome back to East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. Our next guest is David Stein, GOP chairman here in Smith County, also president of the Texas Republican County Chairmen's Association. David, thanks for making the time.
Absolutely.
We're coming off the Texas GOP convention held in Houston. You were there. What's the headline out of this year's convention?
Headline was the theme, and it's unity drives victory. It was promoted throughout. It was the governor's initiative, and he is passionate that we stop the infighting. Primaries are over. We now come together and march together towards November. We have to be able to understand that we may have different ways of getting there, but we're here now, and now our job is to support our Republican slate of candidates.
And you mentioned that messaging, unity drives victory. How does the party go from a bitter and bruising primary fight to joining together, heading into November as one party, backing the nominees?
Well, it's sort of like how friends used to be back at the time when I was growing up. You have a knockdown, drag-out fight, you bloody each other's nose, you stand up, you shake hands, and you move forward. That's what primaries are for. They're supposed to be passionate. They're supposed to be animated. It works both ways for both parties. But someone said to me while we were there, what we really need is we need a document that just says basic things about who we are and what we believe. And I looked at them and I said, we already have that document. It's called our principles. And when we rally around those principles, the pro-life, the limited government, the individual liberties and freedoms, those are all things that people can agree on, people that understand are part of the fabric of who we are.
And when it comes to the marquee matchup this November, that being between Attorney General Ken Paxton and James Tallarico for that Senate seat, there was a lot of talk in the primary about character. Even Congressman Moran, who represents a good chunk of East Texas here, had supported John Cornyn in that race, saying he was the man with better character. So in a race like that, how does the Republican Party convince voters to go for Ken Paxton when there was a lot of messaging leading up to the primary about, we don't know if this guy is the best guy to win that race in November?
So my big point is the balance of power in the Senate. If Tallarico were to win that seat, first off, I think Ken will be an effective legislator. So despite his personal issues, I think he'll be effective in the Senate. But the messaging is, if we were to lose that Senate seat, first off, it's the first time in 40 years or 30 years that Texas will have lost a seat like that. But what happens in the Senate? What happens to the balance of power? What happens to the country? Do we go back to we get back to a point where the balance of power totally shifts, and now we're back to impeachment on demand. And those are the kind of things that will happen. That's not good for the country. So you've heard the expression before about sometimes people are going to have to, do whatever and vote for a candidate that may not be theirs. But my message to all the Cornyn voters is this is our guy now. This is the guy that we need to support, because when you have a choice of Ken Paxton and James Tallarico, in my mind, it's clear choice on who we need in there, and that would be Ken Paxton.
And when it comes to the recent GOP convention in Houston, did anything surprise you this year?
A few things. So one was there was a significant rejection. First off, the state chairman, the existing chair, won 3 out of 31 Senate districts. So it's like an electoral college. Our Senate district votes, and our Senate district voted for Dorinda Randall, the new chair. So she gets 1 vote from us. So it was 25 for Randall, 3 for Abraham George, and then 3 for Sandra Whitten, who was a good candidate. She's from the far west in Texas, and a lot of people just didn't know who she was. But it was surprising how overwhelming that was. People are tired of the rhetoric. They're tired of the nonsense. They're tired of the vitriol. They want a little more of what we feel like where politics used to be, the Reaganism, that if you disagree with me 20% of the time, you're 80% my friend, not 20% my enemy. So that was part of it. Significantly was when the speaker came up, when Dustin Burrows came up to speak, we anticipated there would be a few boos in the room. We know that people were prepared to do that. So it didn't surprise me when it started. It was very minor, and what was for me personally gratifying to see was a lot of people, myself included, got up, went over to those people and just politely asked them to knock it off and be respectful. And they did. So people came together about that. And then, of course, the elephant in the room was there was an elephant in the room. I mean, we're sitting there, and Governor Abbott said he was going to introduce a special guest, and all of a sudden, you're looking around, and that's an elephant.
An actual real-life elephant.
Actual elephant in the room. Walked through the middle of the convention. They had it all blocked off. And then after the convention, when you went back into the governor's booth, you're taking pictures with the elephant. Not on the elephant, but in front of the elephant.
And David, you mentioned the governor. We heard a renewed push from him for closed political primaries. This is not a new effort. This has been a part of the party's messaging for a few years now. And you go back to the 90s, that's when Texas, I believe it was, made the switch to closed primaries. When we talk about closing primaries, we have the open primaries now. What would that look like, and why is this a priority for the party?
So it's a couple things, and there's a lot of discussion back and forth. And so those that live in an area like East Texas, closed primaries makes all the sense in the world. Where there's some contention with it is in the Rio Grande Valley, that there are a lot of concern about retribution, about harassment, about people who, it's a different world down there. And if you're a Republican, you can be ostracized in a lot of certain circles. So there's a lot of folks down there who quietly vote. There's not a logical argument against it, though. When you're saying that Republicans should elect Republicans, it makes all the sense in the world. So that's a step. It's probably going to pass. It's going to need legislative approval to make that happen as well. But it still is going to be a priority to make sure that Republicans are electing Republicans. If you're not a member of a country club, you don't get to vote who the board is going to be.
We have a couple of minutes left here, David. Anything we're missing looking at this year's GOP convention that stood out to you?
I saw a lot of the way that the committees operated. And what a lot of people see is they see the result. They don't really see the work that goes into it. So when you come down to a legislative priority, there's 3 days of committee meetings that go into a discussion. What about this? Can we do this? Is this important? Does this make sense? And there's one representative from each Senate district, so 31 people in the room with a chair, and they discuss, debate, argue back and forth about what makes sense and what doesn't. And it whittles down, it whittles down, it whittles down, it whittles down, and so we come up with a list of 15 priorities. And then from there, the delegates voted. We don't have those results yet on what the top 8 are going to be, but that's what's brought to the legislators then to say these delegates, these are the most important 8 things in this area, and now we are asking you to make sure that you focus in these areas.
All right, Smith County GOP Chairman David Stein, thanks for coming in. We
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. We look forward to having you back on the show.
Anytime. Glad to do it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, sir.
We're back with more East Texas politics on East Texas Now right after this.
What if you didn't just check the weather, but understood it? Why storms build, where fronts come from, the story behind it all. Because weather isn't just in your forecast, it's everywhere. First Alert Weather Extra. It's just more.
Before we go this week, as we approach the country's 250th birthday, we wanted to highlight the American Freedom Museum in Bullard. This museum is divided into 2 parts. First, the Hall of Freedom, a chronological journey through American history. Displays immerse people in everything from the American Revolution to life in the trenches for soldiers in World War I, plus a World War II soldier's bullet-riddled helmet and sand from Omaha Beach. There's even a Huey helicopter that was used in the Vietnam War. Meantime, inside the Hall of Presidents, you'll find a lock of George Washington's hair cut by his wife Martha as he lay on his deathbed. This part of the museum also features something signed by every president, along with artifacts like LBJ's Stetson hat. The museum is open Wednesdays and Saturdays this summer from 10 to 3 on the campus of the Brookhill School in Bullard. And that'll do it for this week's edition of East Texas Politics on East Texas Now. Join us again next week.